After the war in 1919 at the Paris Peace Conference, where the victorious Allied power carved up the remains of the Ottoman Empire, the Zionists had a seat at the table as collaborators, active partners in the empire. Negotiating their place within a colonial order they were desperate to join. Chaim Weizmann, the head of the Zionist delegation, submitted a memorandum proposing something scandalous: the borders of a Jewish state that did not yet exist. Forget asking how do you draw borders for a colonial state that does not exist in a land full of people who never agreed to be colonized. Forget about that, because history is insane. Ask instead, what did those borders include? Let me show you. This is the map the Zionists submitted. Now, what is this? This is South Lebanon. Observe this carefully. The border of their hallucinated damn state reached above Saida, curved inland to form a northern hump, and dropped back down to include Jabal al-Sheikh. This means that they drew their northern border 60 kilometers, nearly 40 miles into Lebanese territory. That area represents almost 30% of modern-day Lebanon, casually marked as part of the so-called Jewish state. If you think I'm winging the distances or exaggerating the surface area, read what Weizmann himself wrote in a series of letters to the British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, letters that took me forever to dig up, in which he argues that we consider it essential that the northern frontier of Palestine, see, they used to call it Palestine, should include the valley of the Litani for a distance of 25 miles above the Bend and the western and southern slopes of Mount Hermon. 25 miles above the Bend. The Bend is the notable westward turn of the Litani River. The Zionists wanted territory extending 25 miles, 40 kilometers, upstream from this point. Do you know what that means? It's 5 miles north of the Awali River. That lands you straight in the Shuf, more than 60 kilometers from the border. And they also wanted the slopes of Jabal al-Sheikh, Mount Hermon. This is Mount Hermon. This Jewish homeland didn't just creep into Lebanon, it swallowed a third of it. But Sarah, this is so long ago. Today the Israelis really don't want to take any Lebanese land. They only want to defend themselves. Well, let me show you a couple of things, Habibi. Back in October 2024, just a few months ago, during the war, Israel ordered the evacuation of South Lebanon. How far did they ask the people to go? This is the official Israeli communique. عليكم التوجه فورا إلى شمال نهر الأولي. You must immediately head north of the Awali River. And here's the New York Times repeating that claim with a little map. Israel told residents to move north of the Awali River. That's within 60 kilometers of the border. See, the Awali lies about 60 kilometers from the border. That's not a random line on a map. That is the exact northern border the Zionists drew in 1919 for their so-called Jewish state that swallowed over 30% of Lebanon. You think they've abandoned their fantasy of theft? This is a headline from December 2024. Israel captures Syrian Hermon, Netanyahu. This is a historic day. There's no Hamas or Hezbollah in Syrian Hermon. Only a new Syrian government that keeps repeating it wants to be friends with Israel. This headline, just less than 2 weeks ago, shows Shara expressing openness to join the Abraham Accords. And yet, here's a headline from this past week. Israel is still attacking Syria. Self-defense, you say? Fantasies of theft this pathological don't fade away with time. What began as theft written on paper is now policy by fire and force. They're no longer submitting maps to the Western powers. They're drawing them in blood. And in the West, every last one of them is letting them. So tell me, do you finally grasp the sheer obscenity of those who preach sovereignty in Lebanon without once uttering the word Israel? To add insult to injury, in his letters to the British, in pure colonial hallucination, Chaim Weizmann declared that South Lebanon was valueless to the territory north of the proposed frontier and can only be used beneficially by the Jewish state further south. What kind of person declares that another nation's territory is valueless to its own people? If you said a genocidal psychopath, you'd be correct.